I wanted to learn from you. If somebody wants to build a long-term wealth or wanted to scale their business, how do they get out of that rut rat or that mindset?
Well, there's a lot of elements to that. One, I think, first of all, you realize if you want to have a successful business that really fulfills your aspirations for wealth creation, for financial freedom, and so forth, you have to design it. You have to design it to do that. Whatever industry, whatever business you want to get into, within that field, within that industry, you have to figure out how can I design a business that will do that. Then you have to learn a lot of really important skills along the way. You have to learn how to hire the right people. You have to learn how to coach people and how to lead people, and you have to learn how to delegate. And that's one of the hardest things for business owners and entrepreneurs to do because we all feel like, nobody's going to do it as well as I do. Nobody has the entrepreneurial mindset that I do, and nobody's going to think like an owner. And 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 it seems like easier just to get it done myself than the time it'll take to train somebody else to do it.
Welcome to the Wealth Vibe Show, where we explore not just how to create wealth, but how to protect, retain, and expand it financially, strategically, and energetically. Today's conversation is especially important for founders or the scaling partners, entrepreneurs. I would say the high achievers who feel like they have done all the work, maybe the mindset work, but there's still some misalignment or something is missing. Today, our guest is Fleet Maull. He's a business strategist, founder of multiple business driven ventures, and creator of a high impact MBA program for bootstrapped entrepreneurs breaking through 6 to 8 figure bottlenecks. But what makes Fleet truly unique is he's also a globally respected mediation teacher with decades of training in Zen and Tibetan traditions. Oh my God, I really wanted to learn that. And the creator of a neurosomatic mindfulness, blending contemplative practices with neuroscience. Wow, that's mouthful, but I love to hear all about that, Fleet. Welcome to the Wealth Five show today.
Thank you for having me.
I know today our topic is really interesting is about why mindset hacks do not scale because everybody's looking to scale when they start something and they think mindset is going to work. But I love this topic, how you said, let's talk about why mindset hacks does not work. And our show name is the Wealth Vibe. So since we talk about the wealth building strategies, all the wealth vibration out there. So we're going to try to kind of put two together, the mindset hacks and the wealth building strategies. So,
Mhm.
welcome again. I'm super excited to learn a lot of things from you today, especially regarding the meditation and the Tibetan and Zen. What have you learned? That's going to be really nice experiences to get from you. So, I know I was talking to you earlier before the recording. You mentioned that you have done so much, and I think you have multiple companies, scale, and also now you teach the contemplative discipline to entrepreneurs, and now you have also this MBA program that we were talking earlier. Was there any specific moment when you realized mindset alone was not enough, especially when the real pressure, like let's say financial pressure, or there were like, some high stake decisions you had to make? Was there something like that, like the light bulb got, like gone on saying, oh my God, this is not it. I have to do something else.
Hmm. Well, yeah. So I think in real time, my current primary company, Heart Mind Institute, um, we've gone through a lot of challenges in the last couple of years. Artificial intelligence is really changing everything, and we're in the online education, transformational online education, and AI has had a pretty devastating impact on that world. And It also offers a lot of promise, right? But but it has we had a really good run. We're on the Inc. 5,000 list 2 years running, both last year and the year before. We'll make it again this year, actually. In this August, we'll be named again to the list, but we will have shrunk and we will be lower down on the list because of these impacts. And I've had to, um, it's kind of a relationship between mindset and innovation and systems. But backing up just a minute, why do we get into business in the first place, right? So I think most entrepreneurs will get into business um, to create wealth and also to create some level of freedom for ourselves, some kind of financial freedom, some kind of ability to,
Right.
enjoy life and have our family have lots of opportunities, right? And we see greater possibility of uh, doing that as entrepreneurs than perhaps we do in a career where we're dependent on other companies, other leaders, the economy, other businesses, right? Um, and so, but once we get into creating a business and having that primary responsibility for a business as founders, the challenges really begin, right? And so I think from the very beginning, we have to keep in mind uh, our real goals, right? And for me, it was very much about creating financial security and abundance for my family and for our employees and for everyone. And creating that freedom. And so, fortunately, even when things have gotten really tough the last couple of years, um, I'm still doing well because I learned the principle of paying yourself first, right? So the way I structured my company, which was built around my own intellectual property, my own connections, and my own, so I've built it such that I get paid for that, right? So
That's
even though the company has been um, uh, marginally profitable. Last year was very profitable for a number of years, been marginally profitable. And now we're finding our way back to a new scalable trajectory of profitable growth. But in the meantime, I've still done well because I structured the company that way, right? And I learned early on that you have to pay yourself first, right? And you create that. There's lots of different models, different images, different teachers of entrepreneurship and wealth building create, but a lot of them have the idea with these multiple buckets and this kind of waterfall approach of what you do with revenue as it comes into a company. And, of course, you have to pay your bills, but you got to make sure you pay yourself first because a lot of entrepreneurs, they pay themselves last, right? They cover all their bills, and as you're growing your company, more hires, more expenses, more infrastructure, and you're paying everybody. And at the end, you say, well, what's left for me? And even in the worst case, a lot of small business people, they're not even paying themselves a salary, right? And they're just, and they think they're profitable, right? So, um, fortunately, I learned a lot of those lessons early on, and I've always paid myself a salary. And then I also have other ways and royalty structures and so forth that I'm really getting well compensated for what I bring to this company, both in terms of the work I do for it, but also, what I've created to create the possibility of this company to begin with, right? So it's really important that you understand that building uh, a sustainable and a profitable business has to foundationally honor your contribution to it from the beginning, right? And then the second
okay, so I'm going
piece,
to stop you. I'm going to
yeah,
interject for a second over here. Since our topic is today, the mindset hacks do not scale. So, I wanted to ask you that why would you pick that topic, or why would you think that the mindset hack do not help you scale? Because obviously, you mentioned a really good thing that as an operator, you should pay yourself first. And I know that a lot of people do not do that. I agree with you 100%. And you have seen maybe thousands of people doing that when you were trying to teach them how to set up their companies or how to set up their business. But I just always believe in this thing, the mindset plays a big role. Um, if you have this can do attitude, or, if you are like,
I think his mindset is critically important. And what I was just talking about is having the mindset of a true entrepreneur and having the mindset of a CEO and having the mindset of a wealth creator, right? So I think mindset is critically important, but it won't do the job alone. You have to understand structure. You have to understand how business works, right? Your business is a movement of resources, right? And you have to understand how resources uh, are sourced, how you add value, and then how you're compensated for bringing those resources to the marketplace. You have to really understand all that, and then especially as the business grows, it gets more and more complex how all that works, and you have to understand how is that going to continue to create wealth for you as the owner, how is it then going to create wealth and abundance for your employees? How it's going to create possibility for the marketplace and for your clients and customers, right? So you really have to understand the mechanisms of that, and then you have to build it structurally to succeed. Like structure is everything. And then, of course, on top of that, then you got to build your processes and your systems and your playbooks, because if not that, then it's all dependent on you. So if you think about it, you know, if you're designing a car and you wanted this to be a high performing car that would last many years, right? You have to really think a lot about that design and how to design it to be sustainable, to be economical, to get reasonable gas mileage, to accomplish what it needs to accomplish. You have to really think of designing it. And I think a lot of people don't think much about designing their lives, and we should all be thinking about how to design our lives, because if we want a wonderful life, we have to design it. It's not going to just land on us. If we want a wonderful life, we have to design it. If we want a wonderful marriage, we have to design it. If we want a wonderful family, we have to design it. It requires intelligent design and thoughtfulness and intentionality. And I also think a lot of people get into business and they don't really design the business. They think, well, I'm going to sell widgets or I'm going to sell real estate or whatever I'm going to do. So I'll just get in there and I start doing it and I'll figure it out along the way. But the forces just take over. And instead of us designing and operating a business we've designed for success, for wealth, and for freedom, instead, we're being run by just all these forces that are at play. The needs of the employees, the needs of the market, the competition, the scarcity of capital, all these things are running us instead of us running a company. So I think it's really about um, understanding that we need to have that creativity of the entrepreneur. We need to have the resilience of somebody that thrives on challenge. We need to think in terms of constantly innovating what we're doing. And at the same time, we have to really design our business for success. And if we start that at the very beginning, it's going to be so much easier because for many years, my main practice was as a business strategist, a business consultant, and a management consultant. And I worked with other entrepreneurs. And I found most entrepreneurs, and I was dealing with a lot of privately held smaller companies, anywhere from, 5 to 300 employees, anywhere from 5 million to 25 million in revenue, right? Those size companies. And these people, a lot of times, by the time I was working with them, they're 20, 30 years into their business, or many times, sometimes they were the second generation of the business. And no one had ever designed the business. They
That's
had
so
never even
true.
thought about
Uh-huh.
designing the business. They were just running it. But
Right.
in fact, it was running them.
That's true. I think that's the question comes to my mind here when you're talking about that, because I have seen in my experience too that a lot of people or the founders, I would call it, in my industry, they start a business like with a constant urgency. They say, okay, somebody's doing that, I gotta do this too, let me start that. And then they always stay kind of in a survival mode, I will call it,
Hmm.
right, in the business, because they are the CEOs, but they are chief everything officer basically.
Exactly.
They are in the constant churn, basically. So I wanted to learn from you, if somebody wants to build a long-term wealth or wanted to scale their business, how do they get out of that rut rat or that mindset?
Well, there's a lot of elements to that. One, I think, first of all, you realize if you want to have a successful business that really fulfills your aspirations for wealth creation, for financial freedom, and so forth, you have to design it. You have to design it to do that. Whatever industry, whatever business you want to get into, within that field, within that industry, you have to figure out how can I design a business that will do that. then you have to learn a lot of really important skills along the way. You have to learn how to hire the right people. You have to learn how to coach people and how to lead people, and you have to learn how to delegate. And that's one of the hardest things for business owners and entrepreneurs to do because we all feel like, nobody's going to do it as well as I do. Nobody has the entrepreneurial mindset that I do, and nobody's going to think like an owner. And it seems like easier just to get it done myself than the time it'll take to train somebody else to do it. So those are huge obstacles that we have to get over, right? First of all, if people aren't owners, they're not going to think like an owner. They can, if we hire the right people, they can be highly talented, they can be highly motivated. Sometimes we can use some incentive-based compensations that'll help, but they're still not the owner. They're not going to have the same mindset you have, and you have to accept that. Um, Also, um, uh, even if you can get to where nobody's going to, there are some things that people are going to do better than you. So you have to realize that you can hire people and you need to hire people that are smarter than you that can do things you
Mhm.
can't do. But there's also a lot of things as you build your company, you're taking things you were formerly doing it and you're transferring it to your team, right? And we always feel that they're not going to do it as well as I do. Well, in many cases, they won't. But if they can get to 80, 85% as good as I did it, you can build a company around that, right? But what you can't build a company around is you continuing to do those things, right? And
Wow.
you have to really have that experience. You also have to let people fail. You have to let people make mistakes. And you have to become a good coach because what often business owners do is they try to build a team and they kind of turn over the reins of things, but then people fail at it and they just grab it back. They grab it back, right? I knew I had to do it, right? I knew I couldn't trust people to do that. I got to do it myself. Now I'm stuck again, right? So if we want to really grow a business and scale a business, we have to realize that I have to be really good at hiring people. I have to be also good at firing people when that needs to happen. But I have to become a really good coach and a really good leader because if I'm not willing, and I have to create the systems and the playbooks, the SOPs and everything so that I have a mechanism where I can train people up to do the things and trust them to do it. Otherwise, I get pulled back in and I'm again stuck, right? Ideally, we should be looking to design a company. Let's say we're starting a company in whatever area. I should be looking to design a company where I can imagine myself being completely out of operations within 3 to 5 years.
Totally
Be
replaceable.
completely
Yes.
out of day-to-day operations in 3 to 5 years. That's why I should be laying the whole thing out on paper. Like, how am I going to do that? How am I going to design a company where I'm going to be out of day-to-day operations in 3 to 5 years and where I can, obviously keep my eye on certain company metrics, but I could go on vacation for 3 months and the company would do just fine. I mean, I'm going to be looking at certain things, and if certain things start to go haywire, I'm going to fly back. But in general, as long as I keep my eye on, 4 or 5 financial metrics, I know that things are okay and the company can run without me, at least to a degree, right? And that should really be my goal.
I agree on that 100%. That's like the gist of it right there, to design a company. Your company should be, I would say, a successful company is a company where you are replaceable yourself as the company owner, because
Mhm.
everybody's doing the stuff for you. And then you said very good thing here. You said delegate. That's the number one thing, is this
Mhm.
part of the design. And then people usually do not want it to let go. It could be, multiple reasons. Could be, financial
Mhm.
limitations, or the timings, the maybe not the right time for me in the company. I just started. I do not have enough budget to hire somebody, or not having the enough training yourself, not having the enough knowledge or education yourself. How do I scale? What do I do next? Right. So when we look at all these different dots out there, we in order to connect those, there has to be some awareness, some mindset comes in again, right? So I'm going to
Mhm.
come back to you with the same question. So there's so much, people talk about having this mindset or the mindset hacks. From your perspective, so what is the real difference between the mindset optimization, I will ask you here,
Well, I
or
think
the
mindset optimization,
calculated
yeah,
discipline?
mindset optimization is again really important because um, if we're going to be successful in business, we have to understand what is the mindset of a true CEO and a true business owner. And really, what you should be gravitating towards is the mindset of an investor, because
Mhm.
that's where you want to get to. You want to get to where I'm an owner investor. I built this company. Now I'm an investor in this company and it runs itself and I can focus on other things even, right? So you got to have a clear sense of where I want to get to, right? And there are a lot of businesses you can get into where that's going to be very difficult to do. So you have to really think at the beginning if you're going to get into business. I mean, a lot of times we get into business with just something we're passionate about, or it's something that, our family's always been involved with, or it has something to do with something I learned in school, or it's just an opportunity pops up, right? But I think we need to be much more thoughtful than that because there are a lot of business niches we can get into where it's going to be very difficult to scale our way to becoming a true owner operator. I mean, a true CEO, much less a true just owner investor, because it's there's just not enough of a market there, and there's not enough product market fit. So we have to really think about what business. If I want to be in business, I want to be an entrepreneur. I have to find a business where I can see the potential. There's good product market fit, and there's a potential for growth where I can create a business plan and a strategy where I'm able to keep hiring the next level of people and hire the next level of people. And I can see myself shifting from an operator to CEO and to investor in that trajectory. And there's enough market there to grow the business to be able to hire those people and pay them well and hire smart people, right? And there's some industries we can get into and some niches we can get into where that's going to be very, very difficult to do. And there's others where it's entirely possible. So again, I think it's about being really thoughtful, but having the goal in mind. There's all the mechanics of how we design and build a successful business, and that's going to continually change because, the whole game changes. There's a lot of traditional milestones, and they don't apply across every industry, but there's this hump somewhere around $2 to $3 million in revenue that it's very difficult to get over. Often there's another one at 10 million. There can be another one, and the mindset and the skill set that got us from one point to the next won't take us to the next one. And sometimes the people we have won't take us to the next one. So we have to really think long term. Like, where do I really want to get to? What would be the best business to be in where this is actually possible? And then how do I design that trajectory and keeping in mind that where I really want to get to is being an owner investor who now has a lot of financial freedom and a lot of time freedom, right? And so that takes a lot of thoughtfulness. And I think so many people get into business, which is why the vast majority of businesses fail to begin with, right? But even those that sustain, often they trap the owner because the owner wasn't thoughtful enough in the beginning about where do I really want to get to.
And I think we see a lot of founders, they talk about building business, they build a business, and then, but after certain time, they feel like they're just hitting the ceiling, it's not going anywhere. So what do you see wrong in that picture?
Well, that ceiling is us. I mean, the ceiling is us as a business owner, right? We have to realize we're creating that. And you were right, you mentioned before that so many business owners are kind of living at survival. They're operating at survival at whatever level of scale. But the ultimate obstacle is us, right? We have
Mhm.
to be willing to get out of the way, and that brings up a lot of fear. Like we brings up a lot of fear. So you have to design that. And you can have faith in the fact it's especially difficult for small businesses, but you have to think there are successful enterprise businesses, so many of them out there, huge enterprise businesses that started off as a small business. And, they had a good enough product fit to get on a good trajectory of growth. But then over time, people figured out how to create a scalable enterprise and how to build the systems and how to build in the people, right? And these businesses can go on and flourish for generations. So this has been done. It's not something that's never been done. And there's a lot of information out there about how to do it. You can look at the people that have been successful doing it. You can model what they've done. It's entirely possible, but we really have to educate ourselves and think about it. Otherwise, we're going to get caught in this fear and survival loop of being stuck in a small business that's just not scalable.
That's true. I agree with you on that. I know you have done a lot of work. I was reading your bio in Zen and Tibetan, and then you do some meditation too, and something you do with what was the word that I read in bio? Somatic, something to
Yeah,
do with
neurosomatic mindfulness.
neurosomatic
Yeah.
mindset. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How do you get involved in that, and how did it expand your brain or mindset?
hmm Well, I've been very curious about the mind, really since I was quite young. I've always been kind of a spiritual seeker, always interested in the inner work. But as I got into business as an entrepreneur, I realized even more acutely how important the inner work is, because it is really challenging being in business. It's a huge challenge to have that level of responsibility, and the more your business grows, the more complex it becomes, right? And that requires a lot of resilience, and ever more so today because the world is changing so rapidly with artificial intelligence and other things that we have to be continually willing to step up to the plate and innovate. The whole game could change on us tomorrow. We might think I have this successful business, I did all this work, I got it to where it's practically ready to run itself, and then the market changes and I'm back at square one, and it can just freak us out, right? And we just go into fear and survival mode. So we have to build the inner resilience to where we thrive in those challenges. We're actually looking for those kind of challenges, and it enlivens us. And we have the resilience and the internal physical and emotional capital to be able to live in that challenge and thrive. That's what it really takes to be an entrepreneur. It's not an easy journey. If people are looking for an easy journey, go get a job somewhere else, or get a job for the government. Those used to be pretty safe until Trump got elected and fired everybody. But it used to be, but there are places, it's harder and harder to find a place where you can just kind of get into a career and know you got a job the rest of your life. That's not the world we live in anymore. But still, there's much easier pathways than being an entrepreneur, right? And so if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to develop the inner resources to have the strength and resilience and the inner wisdom to be open, to have your eyes open, to have your senses open so that you're picking up on what you need. You're reading the field, you're reading what's going on in the marketplace, you're reading what's going on with your company and your employees. We really need to be at the top of our game. And to do that, we need to do the inner work. And so neurosomatic mindfulness is a very embodied approach to traditional meditation, where we're developing greater self-awareness. We're learning to self-manage, to manage our own physiology, to manage our own nervous system, such that we can really be in a truly self-leadership position. Because we all live at this interface between the world around us and basically the programming we got in our childhood. And for most of us, that programming we got was a mixed bag at best, and the world around us can be very challenging. So if we're just kind of in there, just coping and mindlessly, we're in this reactive place. We may think we're free, autonomous adults making free, autonomous adult decisions, but we're not. We're very habitual, and we have to, if we really want to be in a self-leadership position, we have to wake up and realize I can train myself to regulate my own nervous system, which means I can also co-regulate with others and be much more skillful in my relationships, my interactions with others. But that takes work. It takes work to become a conscious
Long
adult human
time too.
being who's really in a self-leadership position. If we want to lead others, first have to lead ourselves. And most
Mhm.
of us, even if we think we are, we're really just kind of being dragged around by life, you know, responding the same way we've always responded, having the same thoughts we've always had. Our human neurophysiology is designed for habit. But if we really want to be leaders, we have to move out of that and into
Yes.
consciousness and train ourselves to live as awake human beings who are really awake and getting all the data and able to really consciously decide how we're going to respond to life rather than habitually reacting to it.
Wow, I love that. Oh my God. So, let me ask you this question. So, when do you think a founder or a CEO is a true CEO or a wealth building CEO instead of just a high performing entrepreneur? So, what
hmm
shift really needs to happen internally first, I would
Yeah.
say? since we're talking about
I
work.
think it's developing that consciousness, but also I think what it looks like on the outside and the inside is that they've really become a leader. They're not an
Hmm.
operator, they're not a manager, they're a leader.
Hmm.
They teach, they coach, they inspire, they create vision, and they create, uh, uh, compelling vision of where we can go, and they inspire people to go there, and they get out of the way and let them do it, right? So they become a leader instead of a manager or operator, right? So I think that's the true role of a CEO, is to be a leader, a teacher, and a coach. And so I think that's what it's all about. And I think on the internal level, the mindset level, is that has become what we really, how we get our needs met. Because sometimes we can get our needs met by being an operator, by getting stuff done. Like, oh, I got all that stuff done today. I feel great about that. But, can we learn to rather inspire a team and create a vision for a team and watch them succeed in getting it done and also get our needs met that way, right? So we have to learn to really enjoy and thrive on being leaders and inspirers and visionaries and coaches, because that's our true role as a CEO.
Wow, I really love that. Just be a leader in your own space and make other leaders around you, because you wrote a book too, on radical responsibility. So I would
Hmm.
like to learn a little bit more about that too. What was that book about? And then how did you come up with this
Well,
idea of writing about
yeah,
radical responsibility?
it has a lot to do with what I was just talking about. So, um, I often describe radical responsibility as voluntarily embracing 100% ownership for each and every circumstance we face day in and day out. So our tendency is to move into blame, and we've all been enculturated into blaming, and it's very instinctual to deflect blame and so forth. But anytime we blame our circumstances on others, and it's not to say that others and circumstances don't contribute to what we're dealing with, but if I'm attributing causation for my challenges, my problems, things I'm not satisfied or not happy with, and attributing that to forces outside myself, I'm giving away my power, because I have no power over any of that. The only thing I have power over is this, and that can be challenging enough, right? But this is the place where I have the most influence with myself. So it's focusing on my choices. And this is not a should, it's not a burden. It's where my freedom is. It's where all my power and energy is. Because the only place where I have any real power is with my choices and how I choose to respond. And I have to train myself. I really have to train myself to live a choice, right? Because we've been trained our whole lives to be victims and to be passive and to be consumers and to move into
That's
blaming,
so
right? So the subtitle for that is how to move beyond blame, fearlessly live your highest truth, and become an unstoppable force for good. So this is where all our creativity and all our energy is. And I have a a very simple question that can drive that model for people, no matter what circumstance we find ourselves in, whether it feels unfair or unjust, or I'm feeling powerless, or I could blame everybody in the world for it. The simple question that will get me out of that victim mindset is, what can I do?
that's so
Maybe
true.
this is terrible. Maybe it sucks. Maybe it feels unjust. Okay, what can I do? As soon as I ask myself what I can do, there's a million things I can do. I'm back in the realm of possibility, solution-based thinking. Instead of complaining and kvetching, I'm not. What can I do? And that's inspiring. Okay, wow, here's a challenge. Exciting. How can I solve this, right? So it's that mindset of a solution-based mindset and embracing total ownership, like radical ownership for my life, radical ownership for everything I face, right? And from that place, we can really inspire others to embrace that level of ownership. And a company and a team that really embraces that radical responsibility, that radical ownership, really at a day-to-day level, is unstoppable. Is can't help but succeed, because they're not letting the world dictate um, where they're going. They're choosing, right? They're leading.
That's
They're
so true, because
choosing.
every moment they have a choice.
Yeah.
Everybody has a choice every moment. You
Exactly.
decide what you wanted to do. And I love that. This is like a good takeaway. What can I do? Versus asking why this is happening to me. And this is like a human. normal response. Then
Hmm.
you get caught up. Why is happening to me? And there goes your day, your month, your year, basically the whole life. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all that. So this brings us to our rapid fire round. I'm gonna ask you 5 questions. You're gonna answer it in one word or one sentence only. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, the first question is, what daily discipline keeps you grounded?
Meditation.
Love that. What do entrepreneurs most misunderstand about scaling?
That is about money and capital alone.
Yeah, that's what they're in the chase mode, basically. Yeah. What is the most underrated leadership trait?
Self-regulation of one's own nervous system.
I like that. When pressure rises, what do you focus on first?
Self-regulation.
I like that.
Because
Okay, so one,
I have to get my brain in a place where it can see the right course to make the right choices.
I know you, and you're so right about that, because we always feel in our nervous system something. We'll feel some kind of itch or some kind of uneasiness, maybe in your stomach, somewhere.
Mhm.
And if you're aware enough, you're kind of aligned with it, right? So basically you have a choice in that moment, how to
Hmm.
respond to it versus reacting. So one last question: what is your wealth vibe?
Fearless generosity.
Oh, I like that. That's good. So, can you tell us, if people wanted to learn more about you or your work, how they can reach out to you? And I think earlier you were telling me that you have some program coming up too in June, July. So, share with
Right.
us.
So they can go to heartmind.co, heartmind.co, and
Mhm.
we put on all kinds of big online summits, online conferences that are free. And if people want to keep the content, then they purchase a lifetime access. But it's an incredible resource for people. We've reached over 2.5 million people with our summits in the last 4 or 5 years. And they're all about nervous system regulation and healing and entrepreneurship and how to thrive, human thriving, human flourishing, right? And so we have one coming up in July called the Entrepreneurial Mastery Summit, the
Mhm.
Entrepreneurial Mastery Summit. So if you go to heartmind.co, heartmind.co, and you just register, for our newsletter, then you'll be on our mailing list and you'll hear about all the summits as they're coming. Entrepreneurial Mastery Summit itself is entrepreneurialmasterysummit.com if people want to just go directly there. And so heartmind.co is basically to find all about our business and our offerings. We have lots of coaching programs and courses and summits and so forth. We have a membership. We have 2 membership programs, and then if people want to learn more about my radical responsibility model, they can go to radicalresponsibilitybook.com. And so you'll see on that site all about the book. You can download a free chapter. You'll see all the testimonials from other best-selling authors. But also, if you then go to your favorite bookseller and purchase the book and you get the receipt or the order number, you can post that on that site, and then you get over $1,000 in free bonuses just for having purchased my book.
Wow, thank you so much for being here with me today and also for bringing both the rigor and the depth into this conversation. Thanks again. And to our listeners, wealth isn't about how fast you grow, it's about how well you can hold it or build it. So stay inspired, stay intentional, and keep building your wealth vibe.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wealth Vibe Show. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget your free gift. Download the Busy Professional's Guide to Real Estate Investing at loombainvest.com. See you next time with another amazing guest and another powerful conversation.